Hello and welcome back to AP Psychology on Educator.com. We are taking a look at sensation and perception. We've already looked at vision and hearing, and so now we're going to take a look at the other senses, starting with smell. Ew, that disgusting, putrid smell. Oh my gosh. So we're going to look at smell, the sense of olfaction. And so when we're looking at olfaction, or smelling olfaction, we're going to call it a chemosense because of the way that the chemical molecules are interacting with our sense organs. Our sense organs are going to be the receptors that are located in a mucous membrane in the upper nasal cavity. So up behind here, where, you know, when some people are getting nosebleeds from because they pick their nose a little bit too much, that's that mucous membrane that's way up in there. And there are as many as, I know I'm kind of starting out with the grossness here, but there's as many as 100 different kinds of receptors that may exist. Now, the olfactory nerve fibers respond to gaseous molecules. And so if you've got these little molecules that are in the air, there are going to be approximately 5 million nerve fibers in each nasal cavity. So that's 10 million nerve fibers that help us smell and take in the odors and the scents of the information around us. And we have quite a few, but not nearly as many as dogs and cats. And we're going to talk about them in a little bit. But these nerve fibers from the olfactory bulb connect to the brain. So remember, the olfactory bulbs are these little doodads that are right underneath the frontal lobe. And so they're going to connect to the brain at the amygdala and then onto the hippocampus. Now you remember the amygdala is responsible for emotional processing, especially fear, and the hippocampus is going to be connected to emotions, but especially memory. So smell is the most evocative of all the senses that we have. We see something and we might be reminded, but if we smell something, boom, it immediately takes us back to that moment when we learned that smell. One of the things that is really enjoyable for me is to eat at different ethnic restaurants. I was in a restaurant last night and I walked into the restaurant and I thought to myself, literally, in fact, I said this to the person I was eating dinner with. I said, I have never experienced this smell before. It was from spices I've never experienced. So my nasal palate, my olfactory palate, got expanded with my dinner last night. So it was very cool. Another part of smell that we've heard of but probably haven't dealt with too much is going to be pheromones. And that's an airborne chemical signal, but we can't smell pheromones in a conscious way, like, oh, I smell something that's floral, or I smell something that's putrid, or I smell something that's musky. We don't smell pheromones in that same way because there's what is called the vomeronasal organ, and it's a sense organ that picks up pheromones, but our brain deals with that on an unconscious level. There's this idea called the lock and key theory, and that's that the odors themselves, the smell molecules, are going to be related to the shapes of the chemicals and molecules. And as a result, when we talk about if one molecule is this way and our receptor is this way, it's kind of a lock and key. They kind of fit with each other. But if there's a different nerve fiber and that it's this way, and then there's a different smell rather that's this way, it's not going to fit. And so only certain fibers will fit with certain odors. And so that's called the lock and key theory. Now, smell is a great deal of fun to play with and to deal with. It's not that big of a part of the AP Psych exam. You'll probably run across maybe one question or one idea on the AP Psych exam dealing with it. In fact, that one something might be anosmia. And anosmia is a defective sense of smell for a single odor. So there's one thing that you just can't smell. And that can actually be an advantage if you are somebody who, say, is working in the sanitation business or the recycling business or working on farms. If you have anosmia for a particular sense, you can probably benefit and use that inability as a strength in certain jobs. This is what the olfactory system looks at from an artist point of view. And what you see up here with the yellow, you've got the olfactory bulbs coming down here, and then the nerve fibers are branching down into the nasal cavity and into the mucous membrane of that nasal cavity. And as I mentioned, it goes into the amygdala and to the hippocampus. And so it goes into this area right through here that is in the limbic system of the brain. But smell molecules will go up into there, and it will be picked up, and then the brain will deal with it. And that's where the transduction, one form of energy, gets moved into another form of energy.